Hello, chat. We are back at it. I'm currently working through technical difficulties with Mark Halsey, who has not been able to get the sound working in the hearing me department. I can hear him. He can't hear me. So he may pop up on here as a sort of a ghost or something. So, anyways, I'm going to go ahead and we'll get started with some of these games here. I don't think I want 5 engine lines. 5 engine lines seems like a bit much. Maybe three. Three I'm used to. Three I'm used to. So I'll start with Tom's game here, and then we'll start with the other games, and then get to the Josh versus Ryan Ambergy game a little bit here. But we've got some early moves, obviously, here. We got Tom Brownlich taking on Arya, who both are victims of General Zod's greatness early in this tournament. We see an early D4, C4, Queen's Gambit type of stuff. Feels like I've seen this plenty during the candidates tournament here. So this is a very topical type of opening. And yeah, looks to be pretty even early on. And here we've got David Lubscombe taking on Chuck. And David, of course, coming off that really, really gritty win over 4 hours in that Queen and Pawn ending. And here we've got Chuck looking to bounce back for a pair of defeats. A very tough game against tournament favorite Ryan Ambergy, where he looked like he might have had a potential to draw the game, and unfortunately did not accomplish that from his perspective. So here he's coming out very aggressive with an early F4 and E4. Very interesting here. And David coming off a 4-hour game. See how he plays, because I'm still recovering from that game and I didn't even play it. So yeah, we are trying our best here. Castles, Bishop E3, and Rook B8, Rook B1. Classic stuff here. And yeah, it looks like Mark Halsey's gone out and is going to come back in. And we're going to try to get him on this broadcast. But in the meantime, yeah. All right, we've got people in the chat talking about Zod's game. So let's go ahead and take a look. So chat warned him about playing the Alakine, and he elected to ignore that. That's
Miles,
fine.
can you hear me now?
I can hear you. I've been able to hear you the entire time. I'm still able to hear you. Can you hear me? I'm thinking the answer is no. We've been working a little bit off stream. That's why this stream started late, was I was trying to get Mark on board, and we failed. And yeah, here we are. So he's trying to get on the stream. Zod has the black pieces right here. Joshua Alexander. And he is, Zod's right here. He's got the black pieces. And then I'm commentating on his game. This is fake Zod commenting on it. Playing the Alakine just as the chatters wanted. Always trying to please the chatters. This looks like a super solid opening position for both players here. Though I always like white side in this type of idea. Early more here. Got text messages. Probably people wondering what is happening with the technical difficulties stuff here. Let's see here, Mark. Mark says he cannot hear me, but he can hear on the channel. That is very, very weird. Very, very weird indeed. That is super, super strange. I don't know what's going on here. He can hear me on the channel, but he can't hear me on the Discord call. Do we have any technical experts here? The superb owl for chess. Jeez, someone has either knows who I am or made a random thing. Can I flip the board so we can watch from the general's perspective? Can I? Let's see here. Flipboard. There we go. This is the system. Yeah, he might have. I'm like 97% sure that I know what the problem is, and I've attempted to explain it in Discord chat, and it's weird because I'm pretty sure it's his Discord settings that he doesn't have the output device being correct. He probably has the system default, and then probably just needs to change that to his headphones or his speakers, whatever he's normally listening on. But I don't know what to do. I tried to explain it via screenshots, but I failed miserably, obviously. I am not very good at solving the world's technical. It's been a while, but it's Gaston for the GU days. You forgot I was crazy good at chess. I'm not crazy good at chess. I'm the guy that they got when the main guy was unable to broadcast. So I'm the backup commentator, and yeah, now I'm the main commentator because the main one was sick. So that's how I became the main commentator for this tournament. But nice to hear from you, Gaston. It's been a minute for sure. You heard me yesterday say I've been playing for 30 years. That is correct. I have been playing for 30 years. It doesn't mean that I'm good. Zod's name, he is Joshua Alexander right here. And he is off to a great start. He's got 2 wins and 2 rounds. So that's the best start he can have. And his opponent has 2 wins and 2 rounds. And if this match is decisive, the winner of this match will be the leader of the tournament. So I can actually hear my own voice on Mark Halsey's camera or thing. So maybe he can hear me now. Isn't 1999 way too low for him? This is the FIDE rating. It's not the USCF rating. Knight C6, B3. He is playing the Alekhine, which I've heard. Interesting. He gives up gives this up here. Because this just allows takes, and then here, and then here, and that this feels like it's good for white, but I could be misevaluating the position. And this is exactly what happens. Yeah, I mean, I definitely prefer white early on here. Got ideas of attacking and doing lots of fun stuff here. You could stream it for him on Discord and show him what to do. I mean, I've provided screenshots. Apparently, he can hear me on Twitch, so he can hear what I'm saying now. And to be fair, the screenshots I sent him might not have solved the problem because that might not have been what the problem was. I just have my own theory, but I've troubleshooted this stuff before. He probably missed it. I mean, I don't know. Yeah, he is down a lot on time. You see Ryan has used basically no time, and let's see here. Did he, when he played knight takes d4, did he use much time? He played knight takes d4, not using much time. Now it takes, bishop h7, and now he's using a lot of time. +1 out of the opening is usually not ideal. Usually that's a sign that something went wrong. If what you're playing in your prep is, you know, your +1 for your opponent, then your prep is probably not the best. So I don't think that this is necessarily what General Zod had in mind. I wouldn't imagine. This is definitely the first very difficult position he's had this tournament. 200 bits. Thank you. General Zod appreciates that because he might need them after this game. This is looking a bit rough. It's looking a bit rough for the hosting channel. You got a club game tomorrow. Do I have any advice? Sack all of your pieces. And then when you lose, blame some crazy streamer you saw on the internet that said sack all your pieces. That's my advice. The main lesson in life and in chess is always have an excuse and someone to blame. Play the towel, exactly. Yeah, no, this is still very early. Zod has plenty of chances. I mean, material is even. His king is a little bit exposed. But that's just going to get Ryan Ambergy to launch some crazy attack that's going to be unsound, we hope. And then maybe there's some defensive mechanisms somewhere. Let's see, I don't know. Let's see, we can try the non-group call. I don't know. I'm troubleshooting here. I'm trying to make miracles happen, but sometimes you can't make miracles happen. All right, I'm going to call him from another place, and then we're going to see if that's going to be successful. I am 95% sure that this strategy will fail, but there's 5% where I could be wrong. All right, can you hear me? Probably not. He might have just selected one output device on Discord. Yeah, that's exactly what I've been thinking, Craft. Sometimes the default on Discord is not the best. It's one thing I've learned from Discord. But we are trying to be technologically savvy here. And I don't think we have been successful at being technologically savvy. All right, well, it will be just me until we figure out technology. And then from there, we might have others hop in. Or it could be all my fault, and it is what it is. All right. So early position here. Tough start for General Zod. We don't like this eval bar, what it's saying. But hey, material is even. This king might not be as weak as we think it could be, possibly. I want to get this knight into the game. Maybe, do we have time to get it over to f6? I would like it on f6 instead of b6. That would be ideal. And then maybe we go from there. All right, he's giving me a call from the other land. Hello? Can you hear me now? Honestly, I probably shouldn't start with "Can I hear you now?" because if he can hear me, he'll just say it. It's literally the least important thing. I can hear him, but he can't hear me. The story of life. Zod is the black pieces here. Yes, it is a bit of a struggle at the moment. Will it know? Ah, it remembers when I was over here. Interesting. Interesting, you'll remember. Did he miss bishop takes h7, or did we misevaluate it? I'm gonna say that he missed it, though it's so difficult here because after b3, like his position is already like somewhat suspect. This feels like a book position, and he spent almost no time, and then he spent almost no time playing that move. So I don't see how he misses that, if I'm being honest. Maybe he just thought that he wouldn't do this. I don't know. To me, all of that's just it's just super illogical. It's very forced. So, and he might have misevaluated it. I agree with the jab chess that it feels like too common of a tactic to miss. So maybe he misevaluated this. I mean, the material is even here. So basically, it's for Ryan. He has to prove that the weakness of this king means something, and that might be difficult to prove because you've got to get some sort of attack going here, and that might be hard to accomplish. But yeah, I mean, Ryan went exactly with the idea that I had of let's put this bishop on here and let's try to get some super annoying threats. I mean, already thinking about maybe having the knight jump in here, threaten checkmate, and then you've got all sorts of sacks and ideas with this bishop and this queen lined up. I just really don't like allowing this. This is Bunda. This is his third match. This is Josh's third match. He won his first two, so he's off to a great start this tournament. He is facing the tournament favorite and also another player on 2 out of 2, Ryan Ambergy, and off to a little bit of a suspect start here. I mean, does he have time for like a rook h8, king g8 maneuver? But I mean, still, this diagonal is tough. Unruh went for opposite color bishops, just like Zod is here against Ambery. Well, I mean, like I was saying in the Chuck Ambergy game, the opposite color bishops, people say it's drawish, but whichever side is attacking is basically up a piece. So it's not as drawish as some people think. And here, I would not consider this drawish. You can see playing this in Blitz, but if you go for this in Classical, you want to at least spend more than 1 minute on knight takes d4. Yeah, you miss knight takes d4 in Blitz all the time, but the thing is you're not even necessarily punished in Blitz because material's even, though usually in Blitz you want to be attacking. All right, looks like Josh is gone to the tank here and using a lot of time. By the way, fun fact, he ended the last game on like 1 hour and 19 minutes, I believe. So he's already used more time than he used last game. Now, granted, the 30-second increment is a little bit deceiving, but yeah, Josh is definitely in for a tough situation early. Now let's see here. 95, 97 here. This is the Bromwich versus Arya game. So both of these players, they faced the general and they left unhappy. They both were unable to handle what the general had cooking. And knight d6, c takes d5, e takes d5, and knight c30. So this is a nice position here for Arya, who Arya is coming off a really hard game in round number 2, a game that went over 4 hours. He had that queen and pawn ending against David Lubscombe, and it was unfortunate to not be able to hold that game to a draw. And so it's tough being on 0 out of 2 points here, but facing a tough field, not going to have any easy games. Arya did have 2 blacks to open this tournament, and now finally gets his first white. and he's going to be looking to hopefully get back into the win column here early against Bromwich. Looks like he has a pretty solid position. It's very awkward having this early f3 with this bishop g2, but I guess the idea is that he's going to be pushing for e4 at some point. So he is all right there. Let's see here. Early on for David Lipscomb here. Interesting here. Chuck-Unruh doing this early f4, wanting to come out here and play super aggressive with white. Can understand that. But the early engine really likes David Lipscomb. I don't really understand why, though. a3 seems very natural. The knight goes to d4. And this bishop's going to be very strong. This knight is kind of super annoying. If you don't really want to play bishop takes knight here, because then you don't have a dark square bishop, and this dark square bishop might take over the game, kind of. And you don't want to play knight takes bishop, because after pawn takes, it's a fork. And you could let this knight just sit there, which is what he does. But that's can be a little bit awkward. Now, e5 opens up knight f5, or knight f5, as some people say. That could be pretty strong as well. How many games will Josh play today? Josh, this is his last game of the day. He will play this game today. Then he will have 2 games tomorrow. Unruh has been playing this for about 50 years. Well, there you go. So he's probably unfazed by this opening that he's almost -1 with, just kind of straight out of the opening with white. Usually that's slightly suspect. But if he's comfortable with this, then that's good for him, because you're comfortable with the style of position. That can matter more than the eval bar. So, I don't know. All right, more troubleshooting from Mark Halsey. He's going to be trying to join us from the laptop. We'll give you some more updates from that. Yeah, this is not a FIDE rated tournament, though the ratings you see here are FIDE. Like David Lipscomb's actually 2150 USCF, and Charles Unruh is above 2000. So they are a slightly deceiving here. Calopa. Oh, by the way, everybody, I know chat's been asking this since the start of this tournament. The general can get the National Master title if he finishes with 4.5 out of 5 or 5 out of 5 to get the necessary rating. If he finishes with 4 out of 5, he'll end with a 2195 rating, which will be 5 points short of 2200. But, all right, we've got some quick moves here. All right, he retreats the bishop to f2, and then immediately knight takes f3. I feel like that Chuck probably likes that exchange a bit, I would imagine. Yeah. So for Josh to achieve 4.5 out of 5 or better, he needs to get a minimum of a half a point out of this position, which right out of the gate here looks very strong for Ryan. Yeah, the general's real name is Josh Alexander. So this is difficult. And I feel like that white has a very logical plan. Get as much pieces into the game as possible and attack. We see Josh having to make the concession already of playing f6 because of the bishop and the queen on this diagonal being problematic. f6 solves that problem, But this king has so many holes. The light squares are iffy, but the good news is Josh has a light square bishop, and Ryan does not have a light square bishop. So exploiting the light square weaknesses might be difficult for Ryan to accomplish. If we're trying to be positive here. If we're trying to be negative, we are 14 moves into the game, and the eval bar says plus 1.3. But eval bars are overrated. An eval bar has never won a chess game. Except when computers play computers. Then they have won chess games. If we're being positive here, it's still early. There's still a lot of chess to be played, a lot of tactics to be had, and a lot of blunders to be made. So let's see here. What is going on here? We've got Queen B3 on the board from... Let's see here. I believe, yeah, we just saw F3, B6, C takes, C takes. The knight c3, we're trying to prepare for e4, bishop c6 to try to stop e4, and queen b3, getting some pressure on this right here. We need lend him energy. I don't know if he wants me to lend him my energy, because after that ending from, what was it, Arya and David, I'm kind of out of gas entering this round. We're low on energy from my standpoint, and I can't imagine how Arya and David feel. Well, I can imagine kind of how both of them feel. It's really hard to lose that type of game if you're Arya. Then have to get up. You've got 0 points out of 2. You got to play a tough game against a national master. That's a real tough spot to be in. At least with David, you kind of get an extra jolt of energy from being able to grind your way and find a way to win. And then if you're David, if you're thinking, if I can beat Chuck and beat 2 out of 3, I'm in a decent spot in the tournament, having only 1 loss, and that being to Ryan. Is the sound off for anyone else? I hope not. That would be bad. But the sound hopefully is on. Sound works for that person. The sound is off for Mark Halsey apparently as well. He's kid. They're unbreakable wills. Yeah. Being a kid can help. My will is very breakable. Going back-to-back games like that is akin to coming back to HQ, only be given plane tickets to go from another place before you can go home. Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. And it's just so difficult because you've got a tough opponent, because that's the thing with this invitational tournament, is there are no easy games. In a traditional Swiss tournament, if you start 0-2, eventually we start playing people who are like 400 points lower rated than us, and then they blunder in the opening, and then maybe you get like an easier win, and then you can kind of sort of relax and maybe get a win or 2 under your belt from lower rated competition and ease your way back into the tournament that way. But there's no easing your way into this tournament. It's like you lose that tough ending to David Levscombe, we're going to give you a national master next round. You know? Life is tough. Commentator is a Oklahoman. I like to use the term Oklahomie. The Okie, I think, is the more common term. But for those of you who do not know, I was originally born and raised and lived a majority of my life in Alabama. And I was a Twitch streamer on a different channel, Fake News TV, for a different game, Gods Unchained. and that game is now like pretty much dead. But I did Twitch streaming for that, and then on that channel I complained about my old job, and then one of my Twitch viewers got me a remote job based out of California, and that's the job I currently have. And that job was good enough that I could finally move out of my parents' basement. And then when I was able to move out of my parents' basement, I went to Google and typed in good places to work remote. And Tulsa came up because of the Tulsa remote program. And they were offering $10,000 to move to Tulsa. I had never been to Oklahoma before, but I'm like, well, they're paying me to move here. So I thought that program was interesting. I joined it. And I have been in Oklahoma now for 2 years. So that's how I ended up in Oklahoma. The traditional way of getting bribed. But I have been in Oklahoma for 2 years. So slight background story. I don't know if that makes me a qualified Oklahoman or Oklahomie or Okie jab chess. But I presently live in Oklahoma. What do I do for a living? I am a data coordinator for a company that does consulting for commercial real estate buildings out in California. And we do compliance and LEED certifications and all of that stuff. We're sorry to have you here. Have some Brahms as consolation. I live 0.3 miles away from a Brahms. It is a very short walk. I have been there a few times. But yeah, we did not have Brahms in Alabama. Not that I know of, at least. It certainly was not a big deal. All right, so looks like a nice start here for David Luscombe, though apparently this is a position that Chuck likes to play and is comfortable with. So maybe we ignore the eval bar for now. Let's take a look back to chat's hero, Josh Alexander, aka the real General Zod. Believe it or not, I'm not General Zod. I am not even related. I know some of you thought that I was his brother or cousin, but I'm not. Even though where I'm from in Alabama, everyone's a cousin. So, but we are not related. At least not that I know of. That being said, I have not been on the Jerry Springer show to have a paternity test, and RIP Jerry Springer, so we will never know. The eval in Close Sicilians is akin to the eval in King's Indian. Yeah, the eval bar in the Close Sicilian that Josh played earlier in round 2 was not inspiring, but it ended up being explosive because just one very minor mistake by Tom Bromwich and his entire position fell apart. So that was instructive about how quickly those games can turn. Why would anyone think y'all are related? I mean, I'm on his Twitch channel. How many other people have you seen on his Twitch channel? So, I mean, there you go. The only thing is I'm not on TikTok, and apparently that has angered a lot of chat. They want to be on the TikTok. Let's see here. Mark, yeah, he can't. I don't think he can hear me. I can't hear him now, which is interesting. That could be a plot twist. I wonder if he's been hearing me and been talking, and I've been kind of ignoring him since he went over to the laptop. And I've just been talking and talking. But yeah, Mark, if you can hear me on the Twitch stream, I can't hear you in your Discord. So, a little bit of plot twist on the technical stuff. Which is Zod? Zod is the black pieces here. He is Josh Alexander. Thanks for commentating and appreciating. You're welcome. But this is a live over-the-board tournament for those of you who are just now joining in. This is a 5-round, 6-player round robin featuring 6 of the top players from Oklahoma. And this is the 3rd round, so we will be above halfway after this round, and we're less than halfway entering this round. So it's kind of like the hump round, in a way. Hump day round. And a great start for General Zod here, winning his first 2 games. He had the white pieces against both Tom Bronlich and Arya Chaudhary, who are actually playing each other right now. And right now, General Zod is facing the tournament favorite Ryan Ambergy, and off to a little bit of a rocky start in the opening. Though, that being said, I don't really see the knockout blow for Ryan here. It's unclear. Yeah, the eval bar says plus 1.3, but how do you actually convert that plus 1.3 into something concrete? That I'm unaware of how to do that. The black pawns are good for the opposite colored bishops. I mean, I'm not super concerned or about the game being drawish from an opposite colored bishop standpoint. If I'm Ryan, because there's just so many pieces on the board. When there's less pieces, then opposite colored bishops could lead to more draws. But with this many pieces on the board, I would not be concerned. An interesting move by General Zod here, retreating his knight, and he is inviting knight to d5 now, which I don't see what it does, but apparently the engine thinks it's really good. Yeah, knight heading to e5. Does he have time for this maneuver is the question. It feels like knight d5, but you've always got, I guess c6 is a big commitment because then this d6 pawn is going to be a problem long term. Yeah, looking for a great knight post as well. I can see that. White's bishop is the attacking bishop. Well, I mean, black's bishop is attacking c2 right now. That square is under attack. And b1, and d3, and e4, and f5. So this bishop says, I am attacking various squares. Meanwhile, this bishop is simply running into the silly knight. So this black bishop says, I am much more of an attacking bishop. And I'm not crazy, but the pieces do talk to me. I'm not crazy. My parents had me tested. That's always reassuring, too. Though, you got to be somewhat careful putting a knight here on this knight post on e5, because let's say after this knight moves, you can have bishop takes, and this can be somewhat problematic long term. Yeah, it's plus 2.5 now. It feels like there's tactics long term that I don't understand that we're missing. What if the people that tested you were crazy? Do they allow crazy people to test people? I guess they probably do. Actually, now that I think about it, youngest son, I know one person who's got like a master's in psychology and works with people, and they're arguably the craziest person I know. So based on that sample size of 1, which isn't a great sample size from a science standpoint, I would say that they do let crazy people test people, unfortunately. But that wasn't the person. That wasn't the person. I have not been tested by that person. So, haha, that example is not relevant. But yeah, let's ignore this eval. Yeah, there we go. Oh, I thought that hitting this button would turn off the eval bar, but it just says plus 2.5 now. It just doesn't show us the move. Okay, 95. Yeah, the engine was screaming for Queen G3, but I don't understand Queen G3 at all. Okay, I can hear Mark Halsey kind of in the background. Can he hear me? I can hear his echo, so he can hear me on Twitch. I'm confident of that, but can he hear me on Discord? No
Mitch,
shot
can
Rook
you hear
F7 is
me?
played. I can hear you, Mark. Can you hear me? I'm guessing that he can't hear me. That is not a good sign. Rook F7 is a very ugly move. I don't understand it either. It is a kind of an awkward situation for Josh here. Like, do you consider doing this to get this knight kicked? But then, I don't know. Maybe the knight comes over this way and starts attacking, and you just wasted time. That might be unpleasant. It wants to do like c6. C6 I kind of understand, but this d6 pawn becomes weak, and we don't like that. Rook f7 would be a very tough find, though. All right, let's go ahead, take a look here to see how David and Chuck are doing. So e5. Yep. We traded here. We traded here. And interesting, we don't take here. We play queen c7. I mean, the good news for Chuck here is he's getting back into this, I feel. And yeah, geez, the idea in knight e4 with bishop takes c5, and then that can be very scary. But it looks like we got bishop takes e5 just in time. That looks annoying. Does it matter if we lose this pawn? I guess material's even. We take this pawn. They take this pawn. Got 4 versus 2 over here. 4 versus 2 over here. Except there's like a little bit of overlap. So, kind of played like 3 versus 2 versus 3 versus 2 maybe. I don't know. Now we have Tom and Arya going at it here. And Arya has a very nice position. But fun fact, in every Arya game, there has to be a new maneuver that puts the knight on b6. That is required by law. Did I see? Rook d1. Okay, there e4. The knight goes back. And now e5. Allowing e5 feels rough. But I guess we just didn't want to open up this. But this just feels rough. Wow. It's interesting that the eval bar... Okay, the eval bar originally said like the knight to e2, and now it's saying knight b5. So the knight has moved to 2 different squares. Interesting. Yeah, Josh was down on the clock early, and now he's almost even with Ryan. That is unique. What's the commentator's name? Miles Melvin. If you want to look me up, you will see some very bad recent tournament results. But that's life. Clark Kent, something like that. So rook e8, not the top engine move. I mean, we're almost able to sack here, but we're not. Do we do this? Nope. It wants to do queen, like it likes queen g3 and queen g4, but I don't understand. I don't understand those moves. I guess what we're saying is this king can't move because it's tied to this bishop. But that seems like it doesn't seem to be worth plus 2.4 playing those moves. Mayaz? No. There. You can look me up on US Chess now. I have leaked. My Twitch channel was Fake Muse TV. But I have not streamed there in over a year. So it's not worth a follow. Trying to convert a position you know is advantageous definitely causes you to spend more time in thinking. Yeah, if you think that there's a knockout blow and you can't find the knockout blow, then you can spend a lot of time. And I've been in positions like that where I know there's a knockout blow. I spent a ton of time trying to find the knockout blow, and then after the game I found out there was no knockout blow. So that's why I didn't find it. The struggle is real. Got a comment from Mark. He says, I think queen g3 is threatening f4 and then f5. I like that idea. So he's saying queen g3 and then, I don't know, kick the knight somewhere. But yeah, he was also saying f4, f5 was an idea. And then if you get the pawn to f5, you can now play rook f4 and rook h4, which seems like a fun idea as well. Definitely feels like a position where white gets to attack, though. It's just Ryan is trying to figure out the way that he wants to attack. No, I'm logged into his Twitch account, so I can't reply to you on Streamlabs, but I can reply to you on his Twitch account. So I'm able to type in chat. USCF 1912. I'll be below 1900 after my next tournament probably. If you look at the graph, the struggle is real. If you look at my rating graph, it looks like a cryptocurrency. It's not good. I should start selling like chess player ratings crypto. And then you can invest. Number 15 in the state, but not top 6. So basically what happened is, you have 6 of the top players playing in the tournament. And then they went to number 7 for commentary, number 8 for commentary, number 9 for commentary, number 10 for commentary, number 11, number 12, number 13, number 14. And after all of them said no, you ended up with me. That's exactly what happened. Yeah. So that's how we ended up here. But we'll just try our best. You will be top 8 when you renew your USCF. Yeah, that is true. There's a lot of people that would be higher rated than me that do not have active USCF memberships. So that's a part of the problems as well. Zob up 5 minutes. Being up 5 minutes on the clock is pretty irrelevant here. I can hear echoing. I'm pretty sure y'all might be able to hear echoing as well. That's never good. All right, we have a check on the board. And when you're watching a chess movie, the moment that someone plays check, you have dramatic music playing, and people get excited. You play check, and then you stare at your opponent's soul. Like Arya played check. He announced it very, very loud. Everyone in the tournament hall looked at his game, and now Tom has fear in his eyes because check has been announced. Um, but yeah, no, from a serious standpoint, this is a good position for Arya here. I feel like after having a couple of rough games, he's definitely going to enjoy having this position where he can move his pieces this game. In the previous two Karos, he just had such difficulty maneuvering his own pieces, and just being able to have piece activity has to feel good for him. Can someone link you Zod's game? You don't see it. Do we have something? Wait, I last game I had something pinned to the top, but I don't think I do anymore. All right, I will go ahead, pin this, and then if you click, you can go to Joshua Alexander. That is our hero, and we see a check on the board. So he spent a long time and he played a check, and that lost him about 1 point. That just shows you how fragile these evals are. So this simple check cost him a point, and now General Zod, he's hanging in there. 2.5 was getting very scary, but there's no clear knockout blow. And without that clear knockout blow, without that clear advantage, Ryan still has to prove something. And at the moment, nothing has been proven in this game. It's just very scary. Though immediately, like F4, F5 ideas, like Mark was mentioning, could could be the thing. So yeah, General Zod plays the only logical legal move. I would just play F4, F5, maybe. This looks fun. Get this rook involved into the game, and then attack. But what will Ryan come up with? Yeah, I need deep understanding. And that's one thing I'll give Josh credit for in his rounds 1 and 2 game is he got positions like this in rounds 1 and 2, and he had the understanding on how to convert those. He was able to take the advantage on paper and put it onto the board. And that's not very easy to do. And then not something you're going to see happen all the time. So, yeah, we can see that Ryan has an advantage right now. But can he put that advantage on the board? And you see him play F4, which is a move I suggested, which means he probably shouldn't be playing that. And the eval bar says he's slipping a little bit. It's only plus 1.1. But I think Ryan's plan here is just simple. He says, I am going to attack you, and then you're going to have to defend. And that can be pretty annoying. The guy is an FM. Yeah, most FMs are pretty good at chess. My record against them is very not good. In general. Alright here, any news from this game? Nothing new. Queen to d7. Let's see. Special Agent Bill praying for a draw. A draw for Josh would be very good. Because it keeps him right in the tournament. And it puts him in a situation where if he wins both games tomorrow, he could hit National Master with 4.5 out of 5. It's an ambitious goal to get 42 points in one tournament, but it's mathematically possible. Especially starting with 2 wins. He's got half of the wins he needs. So if he has a draw here and then wins 2 more games, then it is what it is. Looks Frenchish. Yeah, this game is petering off into equality, I'm afraid. I wonder if... Honestly, from what I know about some... I feel like that this game could end up being a quick draw. If Arya is just kind of frustrated from that previous game, just get on the scoreboard, and Tom being okay with a quick draw of black, I could see this being a somewhat quick draw here, just judging by the position. But we will see. I have watched too much of the candidates. I've watched too many Hikaru games. I expect every game to end in a quick draw. We'll make some moves and draw. So speaking of equality, it looks like Chuck had a tough position out of the opening according to the engine, but it has a great feel for the position. As chat has mentioned that he's been playing this type of position for years, and it looks like it. He knows what to do in this position, and now you're starting to wonder if David has the appropriate feel for this position, because he's been just slipping on the eval bar for a minute here. Let's see here. Yeah, we were pretty good around this point. -1. And then a little bit of a slip there. And then it's completely gone. So, yeah. I feel like that Chuck has a position that he's comfortable playing with. He's got a nice open f-file for the rook. Some potential holes in front of the king for David that could become targets for Chuck to attack. And I think that Chuck absolutely wants to attack. So, should be a very interesting game. All right, threatening to make that pawn structure a little bit awkward. I don't know if he wants to give up that bishop, though. This bishop coming from g7 to d6 feels strategically off, because we're going to have some holes here. Granted, this knight covers both of those holes, but we can do something to get rid of this knight, and then come in with this bishop, and then start to ask some questions. Why did Zod play knight takes d4 and not just pin the knight? So, yeah, you're talking about in this position? Yeah, knight takes d4 is not a great move. I don't agree with it. It doesn't feel like something that he could really miss. But it's a very, very odd decision for sure. I mean, it's easy to say, why don't you just pin the knight when the engine is saying play this? But, yeah, this bishop, I guess you can't put it here because of this fork. You can't put it here because of this. You can't put it here. So your only options are to place it here or here. And bishop g4 would be the more pleasant of those options. I would have to say so. But let's go back to live. We had f4 played in the game. I think that's where we were last off. Bishop e4 played by the general. And queen to h5. I'm trying to figure out why he played this. Maybe he's worried about this trade long term. I don't know. I mean, Zod shouldn't be tired. He had a pretty quick game. Everyone's trying to get a draw against Ambergy. Well, Ambergy does have like a 275-point rating advantage over General Zod. So that's relatively a big deal. I mean, Ambergy's definitely the player to beat in this tournament. And like going into this tournament, if you were to make odds, you would say, well, you have Ambergy and then you have the field. And those would be like kind of the two that you'd pick between if you were making predictions. This bishop looks kind of great, but it's just biting on this f6 pawn for now. Though the bishop did accomplish a lot by making him play f6, because f6 is kind of a committal move that puts some holes in front of his position. But hey, maybe this light square bishop can help cover up some of those holes. It's just very awkward for Josh right now because you can't really move this queen anywhere. I mean, you can go to here, but this queen isn't really doing anything, so it feels like you're almost a queen down. He's guarding a pawn is his main mission at the moment. This knight doesn't have a clear square. I guess you can look at c5 and then maybe try to plant it on d3. But I don't know. f4 stops this as well. Yes, it's tough. I'm thinking maybe like a knight b6 to try to kick this knight is an idea. Do you ever trade this bishop for this knight? It's in a consideration, I think, here. I mean, your opponent doesn't have a light square bishop, so it's less of a punishment to give up that trade. But even after queen takes and then immediately work left is, ooh, this can get very ugly very quickly. All right. So it looked like Arya had a slight advantage early on. He's got the two bishops. But the two bishops in a locked up position might not be very good. Because look at this bishop. This bishop right here is biting on all of these pawns. So how do you get this dark square bishop to be a productive member of society? And I think that's difficult for Arya. That's his main goal, is how do you get this bishop to be productive? And like even this bishop is just biting on this. And yeah, this is kind of just awkward on air. It's really hard for either player to get much of a thing going here. Wondering if there's any ideas of like h6, g5 breaks for Tom, maybe? There's always c5, I guess. But I'm not sure that accomplishes much other than hangs this pawn. Yeah, I would not be surprised if they ended up drawing early. That would not surprise me. Here, Josh is thinking right there. They're about even on time. We're starting to see Chuck develop a time edge here of about 20 minutes against David. I think that he's very comfortable with this type of position while David's looking for a plan. I'm unsure if the rerouting of this bishop has improved things or not for David. Because I'm a little bit worried about the long-term holes in front of his king. Let's see if we can get something to drink. Looks like we have a move in the Ryan. All right, a5. Zod plays a5, so I don't hate it. I don't hate this. You're trying to get counterplay on the queen side. Activate this rook, which is out of the game at the moment, which can be handy. And there's no real way to get this rook in the game because you can't move the queen. So, some good ideas here, potentially, for General Zod. We're hoping. We're about to see fireworks. You feel it. I mean, I can definitely feel that Ambergy wants to attack. I'm unsure about how Josh is going to be able to respond to that. Rook e1, very natural move. The engine hates it, though. It is interesting because after bishop to c2, I think you have to play rook c1. Can you get away with? Because if you trade here, I think this is even, right? We're on the queen, we're on the rook, so we have to trade. And I guess the only advantage is this knight is threatening this pawn. But maybe that's the only advantage you need. That could be it. C7 hanging is a big deal. Yeah, it might be. It might be the big deal. Instead of a flashy knockout like we're expecting Ryan to go for, he might just be like, I'm going to go win a pawn. And that might be all you need. And yeah, so maybe bishop c2 isn't as good as I thought. Because I thought that maybe trading would have been a decent idea. Can you get away with a c6 and then attempt that? I guess knight to e3. Yeah, I guess we're just, this is a completely different line. And it's not very pleasant to just allow white to get this knight into an attacking position. And I don't really like this long-term b6 hanging as well. That could be a problem. So it'll be interesting to see what Josh comes up with here. Or does he just ignore everything and just play a4? It's consistent with a5 with what he played last move. C6 is a very big commitment, though. That's the only thing that I think that Josh is being cautious about, is if you play C6, then D6 is just going to be a weakness. And you can't move pawns backwards, which is a struggle. Knight takes C7 is threatened. Not immediately, right? Guess you can play A4. Oh, immediately. Take C4. Ah, wow. Queen D5 at the end of that line. Huh. The thing is if Ryan sees this, I don't see how you stop that. That's a problem. That is a problem. So, I mean, maybe we're okay with just having this weakness just to prevent this line from happening. The amazing thing is the number one engine move is A4, allowing that. But that just appears to be a clean pawn. I don't know. It does involve a lot of trading. And Ryan might think that he has more in his position than a pawn's value. But he might be just confident that if he wins the C7 pawn, the D6 pawn feels super weak and inevitable to fall. I feel like that probably is decisive. And I think Ryan would probably think that that would be decisive as well. Yeah. It's very easy to have a lot of doubt in this position if you're Zod, because it feels like every move that you can come up with here has some downside. And his pieces are kind of tied down. Honestly, going into a pawn down ending might be his best chance. Though, I don't really like going into... I wouldn't like going into a pawn down ending against Ryan. I don't feel like that's a recipe for a lot of success in life. But compared to the alternative, it might be what he has. Does Knight C5 hold things together? Yeah. Ooh. Knight C5 runs into Knight takes F6. Then after G6, Rook E3, and we are sacking a piece coming in for the kill. Who is Zod? Zod is Joshua Alexander. That is correct. For those of you who do not know, this is an over-the-board tournament with 6 of the top players from Oklahoma. This is round number 3. And you're looking at the 2 leaders of the tournament right now. General Zod, Josh Alexander, with 2 points. Taking on Ryan Ambergy, who also has 2 points. And Tom Bromwich and David Luscombe both each have 1 point each. And Chuck Unruh and Arya are looking to get on the board still. But yeah, Knight C5 runs into this sack on F6, which would not be good. Zod at 1999. Well, everyone's ratings are a little bit off because Lead Chat shows the FIDE ratings, which are not very accurate for these players. There are not very many FIDE-rated tournaments in Oklahoma, and everyone's rating is significantly lower than what their USCF is. Yeah, C6 is an idea. Can we move this knight? Like, now can we play knight C5? Okay. We're temporarily protecting this d pawn, and then maybe we'll work for d5 at some point in this game. But yeah, knight f5 or knight g4 feels very, very logical, but I don't see the knockout necessarily. I guess with knight g4, you're threatening this, and probably this, which might even be better. It was interesting looking at that last move. After knight c5, there's only one move that has an advantage. You look, knight g4 is plus 2.3, and then the next move is 0.2. So this would actually not be a bad thing for Josh to go for, because it forces, to maintain his advantage, Ryan would have to find knight to g4, which is an only move. And it feels like every other line, Ryan has a lot of different options that lead to really nice advantages. But here, it forces... Oh, Zod played knight c5. Okay. Oh boy. Knight c5, and now we're playing the game. Both sacks, knight f6, bishop f6, are kind of decisive. And rook e3, which kind of prepares the same idea, also is very effective as well. Now we're a bit concerned for General Zod, because Ryan is very good at finding stuff like this, finding the knockout blow and taking advantage of opportunity. And right here, we can see by the eval bar, there is lots of opportunity here for Ryan to go advance to 3 out of 3. And the bad thing about knight c5 immediately is it's not asking him to find an only move like that line that we were looking at before. He needs to he can play rook e3 and not even sack the piece and still be great. The general is Josh Alexander here. That's where he's at. He is playing this game over the board in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And I am doing commentary instead. Very scary spot. You don't want to allow Ryan to have very many tactical shots on the board. His king is very unsafe. And it's a scary moment. All right, here. We've had a few moves played in this game. King to e6. Again, I know I've called this game to be a draw for a while. I just don't see how either side really gets through. But maybe I'm underestimating both sides' abilities to press on this. But I think this game ends up being a draw. So here, David Lunscombe starting to get some of... He had an advantage at some point. Bishop e7, I thought that Chuck was kind of taking control of the game. Then we have queen to d2, which apparently the engine hates. I don't understand why it hates it. It feels very logical that we're going to eventually come in on some of these weak squares. Maybe trade this bishop off with this knight. This knight on f5 is very well placed. I would not mind giving up this light square bishop for it. But David is like, I'm going to go ahead and take this diagonal. And that means you can't play bishop h3 for sure. So moving a rook right here. Very logical. Bishop d5. He is planting his pieces right in the center of the board, giving them tons of scope. Ugh. Yeah, I don't like playing rook b to e1 and then after bishop d5, moving that same rook back to b1. I don't understand. The ratings being displayed are FIDE, not USCF. Most of these players have about 200 extra points. Like, for instance, David Luskin's 2150 USCF. And Charles Unruh is above 2,000 as well. Chat, does somebody understand what happened here? Because he has his rook here. He moves it from b1 to e1. Then after he just centralizes a bishop, he moves it back to b1. But I have no idea why the rook needed to go back there. White was worried about bishop c4. That makes sense. So that was going to win an exchange. I would have still moved it to like c1 or d1 out of spite. Because moving it back to b1 is just... Oh, that's so cringe. I mean, I know you could have gone to c1 and d1 first, but moving it back to b1 is just so cringe. All right, David looks like he is stacking up on the diagonal. Ryan looks like he still has... Yep, he's still looking. He's doing analysis. It wouldn't surprise me to see Ryan have a long think here. If you're thinking about playing knight takes f6 or bishop takes f6, then this is definitely a position that warrants a long think and some analysis. It would not surprise me if he found it though. Rook e3 is also very strong as well. So rook f to e1. Wow, we've got a big jump in the eval bar from minus 0.9 to minus 2.1. And it's interesting that they want to play knight to g7, and I don't understand knight g7 at all. Okay, the idea of knight g7 is to play f5. And then you've got this queen and this bishop on this diagonal. And if this knight moves, you lose this bishop. And that is problematic. So this, hypothetically, you would play this. Why can't I play f5 here? Because knight g5 threatens mean things. Oh, because knight g5 forces you to take here, and then you can take here as an intermezzo. Okay, and that just trades off pieces. Unruh likes bishops. He's got 2 of them. His opponent also has 2 of them. Uh-oh. Chat said he sacked the knight and lifted the rook. And, yep, he definitely did. This was the #1 computer line, by the way, here. Knight takes f6. The best move on the board. Ryan finds it. And the best follow-up, rook e3. Ryan also finds that. And from Josh's standpoint, this is looking very difficult. His plan is simple. He is going to attack. And it's going to be very hard to defend. Let's see here. The engine line. Like it's tough when the engine wants you to play knight to e6, which immediately gives up rook takes e4 as a bailout. And it's very tempting if you're Ryan to take that bailout, because you know you're never worse. But going through with the engine line, move one of these up. Ooh. Yeah, I can't allow that. Yeah, rookie 1. None of this is forced, by the way. Jeez, that rookie 1 is just so mean. Because he can't move. You're threatening rook takes bishop. Yeah, that looks tough. So, Josh has some significant problems to solve here. And wow, we have knight g7 on the board. Great find by David. Well, it's not very, like, this is a very interesting move. Not super intuitive from my point of view, but it does threaten f5, and a great find by David. It was the clear number 1 engine move. The undisputed number 1 engine move. Is General playing here? Yes, General is playing here. And mate in 4 is now an option. And mate in 3. So we have here takes rook e3, rook to e6, mate in 4, keep it here. I'm afraid that this is now mate in 1 after the next move. And this was not a good game for Ryan. I mean, this was not a good game for the General. Yeah, we'll let him keep the rank General because he won his first 2 games. But he did not look like a general this game. Complete control by Ryan Ambergy here. A move 26 will be checkmate. Ryan needs to be a rank. Yeah. I think what is it in the Somali pirate movie? Ryan is saying, "I'm the captain now." So Ryan is the captain now. Great game played by Ryan. Yeah, the attacking bishop, indeed. And I feel like this game is probably already over. There's probably been a resignation. General is 1999 FIDE. Almost 2000. And General is 2152 USCF. He can't get to 2200 anymore after this loss. This tournament. He can in future tournaments, though. And still has a great chance of gaining rating this tournament. He doesn't lose very much in terms of rating for losing to Ryan. Ryan had about 275 rating points on him entering this tournament, so it's not a super bad loss from a rating standpoint. But it's a tough loss because you want to, you want to win any tournament that you're playing, and this was definitely kind of a swing round. Now with Ryan having 3 points out of 3 games, it's going to be very hard to catch Ryan. He'll be a point up on the field, and with 2 games to go, he will need to. Ryan will be playing, I believe, Arya and Tom, who are playing in this game right here. I thought that this game might be the first one done. I thought they would agree to a quick draw. Yeah, Zod probably has a smile on his face. He just loves the game. Well, I mean, from Zod's perspective, you lose to a very nicely found piece sacrifice and a very well orchestrated attack by Ryan. You can't be too sad about that. If it were you, you would have gone upside Ryan's head with a chair. That's an interesting variation. That's the problem with that variation is you eventually get banned from all Oklahoma chess events, and then they don't let you play any more chess games. Um, but so sometimes it's best to lose a battle, but to win the long time war. But looks like Tom here is trying to do a pawn break to open this position up and then generate some chances, hoping to take advantage of the fact that Arya just lost a very long queen and pawn ending that had me exhausted, probably had him exhausted, and probably had David Lebscomb, who is playing in the other game right here, probably had him exhausted as well. But credit to David, he's played this game really, really at a high level here, finding knight g7, which was not an easy move to find. And now we're starting to look at potentially who could get second place in the Rozsa. And if David Lebscomb's able to come up with a win here, then he will be on 2, with his only loss being to Ryan. And obviously, Josh will be on 2, with his only loss being to Ryan. So, hypothetically, the battle between David and Josh could decide who gets second in the Rozsa. Could be a very big game. That will be tomorrow at some point. I don't know if that's round 4 or round 5. But David still has to convert this here, which will not be super easy against Chuck, who almost had a half a point against Ryan. Definitely had the best game of the 3 that was played against Ryan this tournament, but was unable to get that half of a point. And now sees himself in yet another difficult position. G4. I mean, instinctually opening up more holes in front of your king doesn't feel great, but he's wanting to stop f5. The engine says it doesn't stop f5. It's never good when you play a move designed to stop a move, and then the engine's #1 recommendation is playing said move. I don't understand g4. I just don't understand it. Are we trying to free up a square for this knight to maybe retreat here? I mean, this is still a problem. Wait, the bishop's... If the bishop goes to g3, then the queen guards here, and that frees up the knight. Okay, that might be what he's trying to accomplish. He's trying to jettison a pawn to kind of free up his pieces. But you can just play f5. And then hypothetically here, this is not good. This is, it looks like it's just a full piece. That just looks like a full piece. Yeah, g4 I just don't like. I mean, granted, his position right here is very difficult to play. And g4 is the #2 computer move, and queen h6 is hard to find. And g4, f5 is just so natural, especially after knight g7 with the intent of playing f5. I don't see how David misses f5 here. I think that this could be another quick knockout. Not ideal at all. Is there any tricks here for Chuck, I wonder? If he plays f5, this seems insane. I just don't see the follow-up, though. I mean, we're going to try something to e3, maybe, bishop to e3. But this attack does not feel very sound. Yeah, very difficult here. I'll keep an eye on David's clock here. David has 40 minutes, 22 minutes behind on the clock. But more importantly, I think if he finds f5, he's just up a piece and pretty much has the game won. I think the drama this round is going to be between this Bromwich versus Arya game. All right, well, we have a move here. F5 on the board. I thought that David would find it, and now that he's found it, it is very difficult here for Chuck to accomplish anything. Because he's just losing a piece. There's no other way about it. And it's a piece with no compensation. You can try an idea like Queen H6, but David has enough pieces around his king that there's no real breakthroughs. So it would not surprise me if we saw a resignation here from Chuck very soon. It's just a full piece. Now, granted, some people like myself often play these out a little bit too long. I mean, I've had many comebacks when I've been down a piece. So but yeah, it's a full piece. And most of my comebacks when I was down a piece were not against players of David's caliber either, which makes life even harder. So Chuck has a big problem to solve there. And right here, can Arya or Tom find a way to get a decisive game? Which one is Zod? Zod is right here. He's the one with his king where he's got 2 squares to go to, and this rook pre-moved coming to g7 is not good. So Zod lost. He has 2 points out of 3. He's still got a good tournament going, even though this round was a disappointment for his fans. He's still gained rating points so far, and has a decent tournament going. He lost to the tournament favorite, but that was always going to be a tough fixture on his schedule. Black against Ryan is the toughest thing that you could have on your schedule, and unfortunately for him, it did not end with a monumental upset that shook up the tournament. It ended with what the predictors would have predicted. The highest rated guy in this tournament is Ryan Ambergy, 24-25 USCF. Josh is 2158. He's the 3rd highest rated behind Tom Bromwich, who is 2200. We've got David Blutscombe at 2150, very close to Zod at 2158. And we have, I think Arya's higher rated now at 2050 than Chuck, who is just above 2000. For this tournament, you've got Ryan, who is above 200 points against everyone in the field. And then the field, I feel like, after Ryan is pretty evenly matched, or pretty close to each other in rating, I should say. Arya is a male. I am sorry to disappoint chat. It is not Arya Stark. It is Arya Chaudhuri, who has a name. Unlike Arya Stark, who has no name. Ryan is not yet an IM. He is an FM. I do know that he is playing in some major tournaments and having some pretty good results. He's beating IMs and GMs in some of his events, but does not yet have the IM title. Would not surprise me if he got that, though. That one would not surprise me. Definitely think he's strong enough for it. And probably continuing to improve. Now, why is it that chat has asked me twice if Arya is male or female, but nobody has asked me if Ryan was male or female? Because that name can go either way either. Either way too. I mean, he's male, but I'm just saying, like, nobody in chat has asked me. Alright, Bishop retreats. Oh, you know Ryan. That's fair. Arya is an up-and-coming player who has burst onto the scene out of nowhere. Bishop to d8. Looks like that this one's going to be another long kind of positional-ish grind where I think both sides are going to be looking for just the smallest advantage to milk. This pawn on f5 feels like a nice weakness to attack if I am Arya. I want to play a bishop to h3, rook to f3 ideas in the future, and see if I can gang up and win this pawn. If you can win a pawn here, then you might think that you have just enough to win this game. But, yeah. Is the commentator male or female? Well, I don't know. In today's society, in today's society, I can say whatever, and you can't judge. I identify as a cat. Commentators rating 1912. Chat knows my rating better than I do. They have looked me up. I was 2040 before I moved to Oklahoma, so I guess I've lost 128 rating points. I took those rating points from Alabama and brought them to Oklahoma. Though I lost a lot in Texas, so that's not really helping the narrative, is it? USCF, correct. Bishop h3 just feels very logical here, if I'm Arya. Oklahoma is tough on out-of-state rating. You know, Alabama said the same thing, and then I'm sure Texas says the same thing. And I got hammered in Arkansas, so they'd probably say the same thing. I think everyone thinks they're underrated, and that's because if you go to tournaments these days, everyone is facing these kids like Arya, who is like 10 or 11 years old. And a month ago, he was 1,600, and now he's above 2,000. And he got those 400 points from someone. he gets them from somewhere. So all the old people, like myself, I'm considered an old people now in the chess world. You know, once you hit your mid-30s, you're just washed, right? So the old people, they get their rating taken away from all these young and up-and-coming players. And then we like to claim that we're underrated too. But we're probably not. We just like to claim that. But yeah, this tournament has one young up-and-coming player in Arya. very young. And then I think David is around the same age as me. I don't know if he's older or younger than me. It's close. I want to say he's a few years younger. And the reason why I want to say he's a few years younger is because if I'm wrong, that's the better way to guess than saying that he's a few years older. So, if I'm going to be wrong, I'm going to be wrong that way. Chuck and Tom have been around the block for a while. And Ryan and Josh are both kind of getting into their prime, I would say, in terms of the young to mid-20s is kind of getting into your prime in the chess world. Ah, boy. General Zod, going back, reading the chat, he does not have a smile on his face. You're glaring daggers at Ryan right now. We're going over the game. Yeah, that was a tough one. Patel has said to you, Oklahoma is underrated. Well, he's an IM, right? So he can't be wrong. So, let's see. Has there been any developments in this game? So f5, we have bishop g3 on the board. So bishop g3 threatens the rook. But I think David will move the rook. I'm wrong. He did not move the rook. Wow. Chat, I am stunned. I don't know. I do not understand. Wait, let's go back to the previous position. Like here, we're just going to win a free piece. He's threatening the rook. Move the rook, c8, d8, move it wherever. I don't understand. Look, what are we afraid of? What are we afraid of? Because he's just giving up everything here. He had a decisive advantage. You move the rook to c8 or to d8. This intermezzo just doesn't feel like... I don't see what it's threatening after... Like, rook d8. Like, what are we threatening here? Oh, he can save the knight because the queen protects g2. Okay. That's what I overlooked. This was a great find by Chuck. I underestimated his chances. I thought that after f5, it might have been resignation time. I mean, I have the benefit or the detriment of the eval bar. I thought it was just a full piece. But bishop to g3 is a great move. I think that what could have been overlooked here is that on this knight doesn't have any good squares. So hypothetically, you move it. You can't move it to here because of this tactic, I believe. Takes, and then no, wait. Maybe my move order is wrong there. We'll just need to take here. Just wants f4. With the idea that the queen gets overloaded. Okay, well, the eval bar just did mean things. So we had a lot of action happening in this game. The eval bar is going absolutely insane. I did not understand that move, but apparently it made sense. And then he goes, rook takes e4. I don't understand. Why doesn't he capture with the bishop? What's wrong with bishop takes e4? I don't understand. Like, why aren't we taking the bishop here? I mean, the engine's like practically even. I mean, slight pull for black, but definitely a very playable position. You have to prove that 2 pieces are better than a rook. That's hard. Unruh likes bishops. I mean, more than rooks. And now, yeah, he goes rook e1, and I think we can just move this rook, right? Why can't I move this rook? I guess bishop to d6 makes a lot of sense here too. Humor me, what happens if I move this rook? I'm very good at losing an advantage. Okay. The engine was saying mean things, and now it's wow. Interesting. So Zod's game was this game against Ryan, and life was very difficult here because the king has 2 legal squares, and Ryan had pre-moved rook g7. So Josh did. General Zod said, "I resign," and that invalidated the pre-move. So he did not get checkmated. But he does fall to 2 points out of 3. Ryan advances to 3 points out of 3 and takes control of this tournament. As we stand right now. A lot of options here for David, but I think that bishop d6 is logical. Moving the rook is logical because we're under attack here. But Chuck is going to play bishop takes e4. He's going to bring in his queen. He's going to bring in his bishop, and he's going to attack the king. The eval bar says it's 100% unsound, but the good news is David does not have access to an engine, so that means anything can happen. How strong is Ryan? He is 24-25 in FM. Pretty strong. Definitely the favorite for this tournament. Queen to d5, another move that I don't understand. This entire sequence is moves that surprise me. I think what he's saying is after bishop takes, rook takes, if you try to come in here on queen h6, you've got queen g5 to cover up and force a queen trade. And the resulting queen trade would result into a positive position here. So let's just put this on the board. What I'm talking about here. And this would be a winning position because you've got one more piece than your opponent, if we're counting. bg5. Did I miss a tactic here? So queen d5. Oh, so you're saying in this position, well, it doesn't win the queen, right? Because we got this. So, and then we're sneaking out here. Maybe we're making a comeback. I mean, we're still down a piece, but yeah, I think queen g5 is very pragmatic. All right. So bishop takes e4, and then I think we'll see queen g5. We'll see this queen move, maybe probably to c2 or d3 to post some pressure on this diagonal, along with the bishop here. And yeah, I mean, David's up a piece. He just needs to survive the ensuing desperation attack, and then he'll be good to go. He's up a rook now. It'll be up a piece if he exchanges the bishop for the rook. It's very difficult to come back when you're down a full rook. In general. But Chuck will be looking for something creative to apply some pressure onto David and make him find one or two good moves to finish that game off. Meanwhile, Tom and Arya are in a position here where we've got Arya putting some pressure on this f5 pawn. And he's going to try to win it. But it does not look like he's going to be able to get enough pieces to win it. Maybe see the bishop come to c3, rook come to f1, king go backwards. The engine does not like b5. I'm guessing a4 is my instinctual idea of after that, but apparently not the best idea according to the engine. I like a4 because I get this. I immediately get this rook involved in the game on this file, which didn't have anything to do before. But apparently, moving your rook to either here or here doesn't really accomplish much. Yeah. Oh, Chuck made a move. He went bishop to e5. So he picked up the bishop, and he's like, I don't want your rook, I like bishops, as chat has mentioned. So there's a couple of logical moves here for David. He can be concerned that this rook is hanging, but he doesn't appear to be. I think bishop f6 is very logical to try to trade off here. Unruh wants queen h6. Yeah, but I think after bishop h6... Interesting, we can do this first. This intermezzo is big, I think. Here, and can we get in queen g6? Oh, queen h6, what happens here? It's so close from being able to do something. This is scary here for her. David, I know what the eval bar says. Okay, Ryan is here. And General Zod just went over the game with Ryan. Congratulations, Ryan, on yet another win. This one was a quick knockout in a pivotal game in the standings here. Chat wanted us to have the game from General Zod's perspective. So we have the black pieces here at the bottom of the screen. Hashtag stop playing the Alekhine. Somebody in chat thought the same thing. But we see the early opening, and the engine is very happy with the position from Ryan's perspective. Very early. And the first thing that shocked chat was this position. We did not understand knight takes d4, quite frankly. I know it doesn't lose material, but we're getting our king to go out here and does not feel good. You got your line mixed up, sadly. Yeah, I noticed, we noticed you moved very quickly there. But this position is already very unpleasant There's a knight on f3 and a bishop on e2. Okay. So, different position we're thinking of. But, unfortunately, the tactics are advantageous to Ryan here. Yeah, this was not... Ryan was not shocked. He was not shocked by how bad this was on the eval bar. Yeah, this is just unpleasant. I mean, the fact that f6 is the #1 computer move and you played it, I mean, congratulations. But the fact that you have to play f6 is tough. It's very tough. Well, he can play the same thing and just not play knight takes d4. I mean, he could. Feingold would not approve of f6. Well, Feingold, f6 is the #1 computer move. So Feingold is wrong. But that being said, if you have to play f6, it's not a good sign for your position. And it was never a good sign here. Natural developing moves. Engine did not like this. I mean, I kind of get trying to do this, but the knight coming to d5 was very difficult for us to watch. I mean, we're already thinking maybe the knight comes back to b6, which is not fun. But it does not. The next round starts at 9:30 a.m. tomorrow. So the players get plenty of time to rest from here. Queen h4 is a check. And king g8. It almost felt like maybe we're getting somewhere here. f4. Mark Halsey did mention this when he was in the chat earlier that he liked f4 ideas. Bishop e4. And I did not understand this originally, but I guess we are getting off of this diagonal and preparing some nasty stuff on f6. a5. I like the spirit of a5. Try to get counterplay on the other side of the board. Queen h5 was meant to play queen takes d5. Okay, that makes sense. So if you play bishop takes d5, you can play queen takes d5. Yeah, that makes sense. And the engine's like a4, just ignore what Ryan's doing, but it's just hard to ignore people who are doing these type of things to you. Unfortunately, knight c5 fails tactically to the brilliant knight f6. A great find. Now, you know, Josh had a great piece sack in round #1. I believe it was. And in this game, Ryan gets to be the one sacking the pieces. c6 is the only move for a human. I agree. c6 is what we were looking at. c6 with the idea of playing knight c5 was one of the lines we were looking at. I mean, he is obviously still worse, but not as bad as this. Because after rook e3, there are no good moves for black. Rook e6. Unfortunately, running into a mating net. And the general resigns because he says, "Thou shalt not checkmate me." So he did not get checkmated. Though Ryan had rook g7 pre-moved, which would have been very difficult. Geez, so much Alekhine hate in chat. I haven't seen this much Alekhine hate ever. It sounds painful to hear the general resigns. Yes. Ryan said that I'm the captain now as he took over the ship. He's like 200 years old. Yeah. He would be if he was still alive, I guess. But good game from Ryan. A very dominant performance. And the general shall rise again tomorrow. Well rested. He's got a lot of time until his next round game. And in round number 4, he will have the black pieces against David Lepscomb, who that should be a good game. David and Josh are about 8 points in USCF rating from each other. 2158 versus 2150. While Ryan has white pieces, the black pieces against Tom, and Arya and Chuck might be looking for their first points of the event at that moment, depending on what happens in these games. Bantam. Yep. So, all right. This is the chaotic game. It feels like Chuck was a lot worse and is launching a desperation. His last desperation heave and feels like he potentially is generating something here. Queen h6 would just be a fun move to play here, ignoring the fact that my rook is attacked because I'm threatening checkmate. Josh and David is basically a game per second. It could be. I mean, obviously, it depends on what Ryan and Tom do. Because hypothetically, if Tom were to find a way out against Arya and then find a way against Ryan, that would blow up the entire tournament. It is... I have not seen an Alekhine from Ryan. He might have played it in Blitz at some point. But yeah, Josh and David tomorrow could be the game that decides second, assuming David is able to convert this very good-looking position here. And Tom is struggling right now with Arya. Arya looking for his first points of the tournament here. Has a nice small edge. Can go ahead and put some pressure on this file and maybe wreak some havoc. While it doesn't really feel like Tom has a breakthrough here. What are my texts I'm receiving from these people? All right. So, this game has a lot of juice left in it. I definitely think that Arya's got that youthful energy and wants to find a way to convert and get his first win of the tournament, while Tom is looking to hang on and avoid back-to-back losses on the same day. It's never fun to lose back-to-back or lose once. So, yeah, I don't recommend it. A5 is a practical way for Tom to try to generate some counterplay here. But apparently, Arya can just ignore it because it doesn't really threaten anything. If you take, I take. And this bishop would immediately be on this rook and be on the f8 square, which is key. You can't give up this f5 pawn without bad things happening to you. So when the rook comes up to hypothetically f7, which would be the only square, we can double here on f3. So sample line here, take, here. The engine actually wants you to give up the rook, which is never encouraging, right? We can go ahead and put more pieces on here, and then the rook here, coming over here, and we can take with either piece, I think. What's wrong with taking with the bishop? The engine doesn't like it. I mean, it's just an exchange according to the engine line. Oh. It's checkmate, except this bishop holds it. So yeah, the general did not get it done this round, but did not emerge victorious. Oh, we saw some quick moves in this game, some quick exchanges. So after a5, we have pawn takes a5, bishop takes a5, bishop takes a5, knight takes a5. And now the very natural rook f1 is a very good-looking move for Arya here. If he's able to do that, he will have a nice advantage in this game. I guess the sample line would be something like this. And then maybe, does this work? No, it doesn't. So it's not as clear-cut as maybe I was thinking. The engine wants to reroute this rook over here. But finding the knockout here might be difficult. So Arya has some work to do. Rook f1 on the board, by the way. So we were expecting this, a very natural move. And I would expect Tom to not just give up this f pawn. I think you will see rook f7 here, preparing rook f8, and fighting for this pawn. Because if he loses this pawn, I just don't really see a great way for him to compete in this game. The engine wants to play c5, but I don't see a future in that. I guess c5 is interesting because you're undermining e5. So c5, it wants to play rook a3. Oof. But I guess the point is, after this, then you have to either have to move your king or you have to move your rook. And then that leaves this pawn out. You don't move your rook because bishop takes f5 just wins everything. So you would move your king. And why does this not work? Wow, apparently after king c7, this is equals. That surprises me. I don't understand. I guess with this and this kind of being weaknesses in the position, the pawn that we won was irrelevant. All right, well, there's a lot of interesting things for that game, but we see rook f7 from Tom, which rook f7 was the most natural move. c5 was probably the best try, but that's like an engine line. So the engine is wanting either g4 or rook f3 or rook a3. I think rook f3 is somewhat logical, but we can just meet it with rook f8, and then what are we doing? Okay. So again, rook f8 feels super, super logical for Tom here. He is going to fight for that pawn, and indeed he plays it. And now how does Arya make progress? g4 is just not super clear to me. Because after takes, bishop g4, you've got king e7. The engine says rook a3 is the only move to maintain an advantage, which is a hard move to play after you just moved from here. But I think the idea is that we do not want this pawn to be pushed up in this direction. And once we commit one of our rooks to guard over here, you can go h5 and then g4. This is, I think, is one of those positions where the engine says something, but from a practical human standpoint, it's really, really hard to prove. I mean, plus 1.8 feels like it should be winning, but it is hard to prove. General Zod is Joshua Alexander. Was unfortunate in his game to not get a win. Take a look at what is happening here, and we have a checkmate threat on the board. Does that mean he is out? Now, he will have 2 more games tomorrow. We have an intermezzo here. It's not a... so the king has to go to h1. Otherwise, we have this check, which picks off the queen. So he is not out. He will play 2 games tomorrow. Could definitely still mathematically win the tournament or finish in second. Don't understand how this works. You're doing out to 400 ELO. Congratulations. But this is a 5-round tournament. A round robin where every player will play every player in the tournament. It's an invitational tournament. And yeah, right now, Ryan Ambergy is in the driver's seat. And it's very difficult for it. How many points for a win? You get 1 point for a win. Get a half a point for a draw. And you get nothing for a loss. This is insane. There's only one move to have a substantial advantage for black. He has to find queen takes e5. The general has 2 points. And he does not find it. So bishop takes e4. And I mean, this is getting tough. Chuck had a really hard position, and he's trying to have a very major comeback here. Wow. It's amazing that queen takes e5 was the only move to maintain what looked to be a decisive edge for David. I thought the game was over at f5. I thought right here we're winning a piece. The game is done. But the resourcefulness of Chuck to find bishop g3, which has led us down to this chaotic line where, I mean, Chuck has generated counterplay. He's down a piece, but he has pressure. And now after bishop to e4, we've got us a fight. The only move that isn't losing is bishop takes e1. Every other move is losing. So David, in a situation where he must sacrifice his queen for equality, that is a very tough spot. And this was a game that I thought that Chuck was dead. And I'm being proved wrong. I am being proved wrong here. And wow, David is in a very tough position here. Can he find bishop takes e1, giving up his queen? It is the only move to maintain equality. That is such a tough find. He finds it. Wow. Great move by David. Great move by David to find bishop takes e1. And now the position, the eval bar says the game is equal, but this position is just absolute chaos. It will not end in a draw. It can't end in a draw. It would be too disappointing for me if this game ended in a draw. Someone needs to figure out a way to win this. But, I mean, bishop takes queen. We're going to have 2 rooks and a knight for a queen, which is generally enough material for a queen. But white will have more pawns. And black's king is a little bit awkward. The link for this game live should be under the pinned messages, Carmu. I believe the pin in the chat is still there, right? I think it is. I could be wrong. If it's not, here you go. So, the crazy thing here, the funny thing about this position is Chuck is considering not taking the queen. He is thinking about queen g6. It's a legitimate candidate move. He's like, I could give up a bishop for the queen, but I don't want to do that. He does not want to give up a bishop for the queen. He wants to do something else. Unfortunately for Chuck, I think he does have to take the queen. But it's just funny that he's spending time, and it's a legitimate candidate move to not take the queen, to just play queen g6. The problem with queen g6 is David always has queen takes e4, which is solid, I guess. All right. So Tom and Arya are trying to figure this out here. So we have rook to f8, h5 played, which does not appear to be it. c5 trying to weaken here, and we're getting down to this ending to be somewhat evenish. I wonder if there's ever a line where we can sneak here. I guess you just have to do d takes c5. Because, like, let's say if we played over here, is there ever... What happens if we take here? Wow, if we take there, we're just getting bulldozed. I don't understand. Take, and then here. I don't understand how this is that bad. I guess maybe the idea is that we've got e6, and then we can't trade the knight for the bishop and the pawn because the resulting king and pawn ending is lost. Okay, that makes some sense. Okay, so after c5, we have d takes c5 on the board, followed by knight c6. And this is the current position. The engine was just screaming for d takes c5, so Arya did find the correct move. It's interesting that pawns are even, but we have this weird thing with 6 pawns 3 of each color on the 5th. You don't see that often. So you've got a lot of passed pawns here. If anyone can figure out a way to push them. It could be somewhat dangerous. And by a lot of passed pawns, I mean each side has 1. We got 1 each. And neither of them are really going anywhere. We're threatening knight to d4. And then you can say check. Did Unruh take the queen? Unruh did not take the queen. Oh boy. Alright, let's go back here. Bishop takes e4. Bishop takes e1. Queen g6. Ignoring the queen. Rook f1 check. King g2. Rook f2. King g1. And this is the current position. Ah, this is pure chaos. So, Chuck is down 2 rooks in this position. But he does not care. Yeah, it is. He's threatening queen h7. Let's say we waste a move. He's threatening queen h7 here, 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 here. And then this. And apparently this is winning because at the end we pick off the rook. So, all right here. After king g1, rook f to f7, rook b to f7 was played. Like, what the engine line is all zeros. I wonder if this leads to a perpetual. What happens if I take here? So the game, the engine just wants to do a perpetual. I don't know if the players will do this, but the engine just wants a perpetual. It would be a disappointing way for this game to end on a perpetual because it's just pure chaos here. I love how Chuck is just like, I don't want your queen. David gave up his queen, and Chuck is like, I don't want it. I don't want your queen. Yeah, very fun game. Rook f7. Zod is in Tulsa, Oklahoma, playing in the tournament that we're commentating now. He did not emerge victorious this round, but emerged victorious in the other 2 rounds so far. So he's got 2 out of 3. Wow, this game could be ending to a draw. Does bishop g3 do anything? I don't want to move my bishop backwards. Let's exchange first. And then try this. Okay, we're getting mated, I think. Yeah, you don't really want to trade this bishop for this bishop. Because 2 rooks and a knight is better than a queen. So keeping this bishop on, especially when it's attacking and applying pressure, is good. I think that Chuck is actually forced to play bishop to d5, but he's going to spend a lot of time because he's attempted to avoid playing that ugly move, giving up a bishop for a queen. And at no point in this game has he wanted to do this. See if there's been progress over here. There has been. Knight c6, rook e3. Which is not guarding this pawn, I don't think. But d4. And yeah, this is going to be difficult for either player to make progress in, I believe. It's slightly awkward that black has both rooks behind and guarding this one pawn. Not ideal. You want your rooks to be active, so you'd still prefer Arya's position, but it's also going to be hard to prove. Yeah, we are trying to see here. I'm going to run to the restroom real quick. Had too many Gatorades. We'll see what happens coming up here. All right. I guess I don't need headphones in because I don't have anyone I'm co-broadcasting with. I just now figured that out. I'm 2.5 hours into the stream, and I just realized that it's completely pointless to have my headphones in. Because I'm not listening to anyone. I did not think of this. Completely pointless. Yeah, not listening to anyone. I mean, to be fair, at the beginning of this call, we tried to have Mark Halsey on. There were some technical difficulties that led to that not happening. And there were some various points in the stream where we tried to have him on, but that did not happen. So, all right, this is a game that has more moves coming here. D4, rook b3, attacking this pawn. Rook a7. I like this from Tom. He says, you can take me, I'm going to take you. It's better to be active with your rooks than to be passive with your rooks. a3 to guard it temporarily. And knight takes e5. And this is... It's just so interesting because of the pawn structure here, with everything kind of being separate. Each side having one pawn that is passed, but nothing is connected except these could get connected, but realistically won't get connected. Is G4 a thing? Okay, G4 apparently F4 inwards. This is not ideal. Okay, so G4 is not a thing. I feel like if we start doing things like this, then we're going to get into a very drawish position shortly. Wow, this is a shot. This Rook B6. You have to play Knight C6, otherwise you lose the rook. And like the engine says all zeros, but I guess this is a draw. Yeah, because you got king here. So if you go here, this is just a draw. Yeah. That won't happen, by the way. None of that will happen. But I was just curious. Chuck here. I mean, nothing is going to get Chuck to use more time on his clock than a hanging queen and looking for an excuse to not take said hanging queen. I think that's the one thing we've learned from this game, is Chuck will do anything but take a hanging queen. We're not doing that, no. He wants to figure out a reason to not take the queen. I want him to figure out a reason to not take the queen. It's just not there. It's not in the cards. So realistically, I think there's two candidate moves here. You can consider the queen check. It's kind of an intermezzo. You get your king to f8, the queen on h7, and then take the queen. Or you can just take the queen. And the engine strongly prefers just taking the queen, because the queen is better on g6 with the king on g8 than the queen on h7 and the king on f8. Though, fun fact, if queens could move like knights, then queen h7 would be checkmate. Things you don't think of until you think of variants of chess, where if we gave the queen just slightly more power to also have the same power as a knight, queen h7 would be checkmate. So, there you go. But unfortunately, the rules of chess have not changed, and queen h7 is not mate. Let's see here. I feel like this is the game more likely to have quicker action, because, I mean, Chuck has a hanging queen, and we know that's going to take another 30-minute thing. But can Arya find his first win? Can Tom figure out a way to, potentially use his experience to make this a winning ending for him? We see that the pawn on d4 is, can that become quick? Do we have ideas like rook d7 potentially? Yeah, I don't know. Rook f4 played. He's trying to commit the pawn to come to d3, I believe. Which, I mean, after this, do we play bishop to f1 and try to win the pawn? Or am I completely wrong? Here, I guess black gets to move. Oh, this doesn't work because we take here and we're hitting here. So Arya has to be a little bit careful here. Tom probably King d5 or d3. King d5 is a tough concession to make because you're conceding this f5 pawn, and I feel like he doesn't want to make that concession. That would be a very difficult concession to make. But what else is there to do? I mean, it's interesting. You give up this pawn. I don't know if this is the best way to give it up. We get this pawn. And can we make this 2-on-1 over here matter? Probably not. We're starting to run out of material for both sides here if we start trading off pawns to have a decisive game. Still Chuck's move another game. I mean, this position is just aesthetically crazy to look at because we have a queen that's hanging, but David Ludscombe has 2 rooks extra. After the bishop takes the queen, it'll be 2 rooks and a knight extra. And for a queen and 2 pawns, not many games has that exact material imbalance. It's kind of odd. Like, is there ever take and then this? Is that ever an idea? The engine does not like that. The engine really wants precise play from Chuck. Otherwise, the game does not end in perpetual. But to me, it's very logical. I want to play h6 and keep attacking. But maybe it's bad somehow. After this, h6, bishop to e3. Wow, bishop to e3 would be a tough move to play. That would be cruel. There's just not a good move for white here. You can try this, but rook f1. Oh, rook g1 just wins. Yeah, it's the queen. Yeah, can't lose the queen here. Chuck has to be careful here. It's amazing. How many minutes are we into this thing? This is a 17-minute thing. Chuck is using 17 of his 43 remaining minutes on whether or not to play bishop takes queen. He doesn't want to play bishop takes queen, and he elects to not play bishop takes queen. Queen h7 is on the board. He wanted to do anything except play bishop takes queen. And he managed to avoid taking the queen for one more move. David quickly plays his only legal move, king f8, and the clock is back on Chuck. Who, I mean, let's look at this. Spent 17 minutes on that. And then let's see here. Oh, queen g6 was the other key move. So he only spent 4 minutes on the first time declining the queen. But the second time he spent 17, and he can play queen h8. But I don't like queen h8 because the only thing we've done is improve black's king. I guess there is some idea after queen h8, this takes. We've got this. But rook f1 is just going to be devastating, right? Take here. And oh, this move seems very critical. It wants to go king h4. Rook g1. Oh, that's checkmate. A unique checkmate. So Chuck has to be very creative here. But I think the reason why he wanted to have this check-in first is so that he could do this. And unfortunately for him, this just loses. He thought that he needed to get a piece back to only be down a queen for 2 rooks, which is logical. But winning that knight was not worth what he had to do. All right, bishop takes queen is on the board. Chuck has finally decided that I'm going to take a queen. And after pawn takes, it's all zeros. Pawn takes bishop was a blunder, apparently. I don't understand chess. So apparently, you got to go with the checks here. H takes g4, king takes g4, rook g1. And now he takes d5. Okay. So you set up this position and then you take the bishop. Instead, we see David take the bishop. Apparently, the position is all zeros. I do not understand why, though. So the idea here, bishop takes, rook takes, check. The king needs to protect this rook. So this is a check. Is there any way to escape the checks? Jeez, how many pawns am I going to give up? Wow. So apparently, bishop takes knight with the idea of just eating all of the pawns with check is a draw-ish idea for Chuck. Now, will he find this? I do not know. He finds it. The funny thing is, king e7 is... King e7 is a move here. It would be absurd to play king e7, but king e7 is a move here. Because there's no checks. And the threat of the rook f1, rook f2 checks is very strong. You do not have to take this bishop. Can simply play king e7. Wow, this is chaos. Everything says all zeros, but the position feels very chaotic here. He does not need to take the bishop, though. I think instinctually you'd probably take the bishop, because if you take the bishop, you're threatening this, which just looks appetizing. And you're threatening the queen, but of course we've got the check. And then we've got the check on h5. And then this is completely fine for black. Or completely fine for white, I should say. or completely fine for both, it ends up being a draw. Fine is the correct word because it's not optimal for either side. Neither one wants to get into that. But we'll see if David takes the bishop. The theme of that game has been not to take the free piece, so maybe they won't. All right, we're starting to push some pawns in this game. So rook f4, d3 check, king to d2, and that rook to f7. It's just hard to make progress. You take here, this hangs. Play c6. Then rook a5 is an idea. Can get behind the pawn maybe? And then try to push. That could be an idea. But with these two rooks guarding this square, that might not get you anywhere. c6 is just hard to play when the knight can just take it. I mean, I get that this hangs now, but feels like that might be petering off into a draw. All right, yeah, we had in this position, he did take the bishop and check. There's two moves that can be considered here. You can consider rook g8 or king f7. Any other move loses the rook. I think the problem for David here is that white is going to be able to check forever. And I don't see a way out of this safely for David. Just the black king has no cover. So rook g8 might be more instinctual because we're not hanging the h5 pawn with the check. And that's indeed what David played. But we do hang queen to h6. The engine also says queen h5 is fine. That is a bit crazy. Okay, we see queen h5 played anyways. And they're going to play on from this position. We've got material imbalance of two rooks and a bishop versus a queen and three pawns. That is not something you see every day. And it might be a queen and four pawns. It's round 4 today. Round 4 is tomorrow at 9:30 a.m. Tomorrow's rounds are at 9:30 and 2:30. And those will be the last two rounds of the tournament. But this is the last round of today. Let's see here if I can do some things and provide some content. All right, here. Rook back to f7. So I think his idea is he's going to all right, here. Just kind of build a fortress. And Chuck is playing for the win. I'm going to push the pawns and attack. So I've gotten some pictures from the event and I haven't posted them. So I will leak them to the chat, I think. I'll find a way to do so. a little bit of a lull here, so I am trying to get creative. I should have done this before the stream. That would have been smarter. All right, so I do that. Come in here. I may have figured out a hack, chat. I may have figured out a hack to technology. Something that we failed at the stream. So we've got some pictures from the event. This is Ryan Ambergy in one of the rounds, taking on Chuck from, I believe, earlier today. And we have Tom Bromlich in here early here. This is the General, proof of General for all of you over the board here. Here's Arya, not a girl, just helping the chat out there. And here is David Lubscomb. And here is Chuck, who does not like to take queens for bishops. And yeah, we've got Chris Dooley here in the audience watching this insane ending here between David and Arya here. That queen and pawn ending was very intense. And yeah. There's you some behind the scene photos from the event. They kept texting me and I kept not posting them. But now I have shown you. So I did a streamer thing. So while I was doing that, what had happened? All right, here. Check here. Queen takes h5. The rook comes back to f7, which is a move. h3 to shore up this g4 pawn. Bishop to d2. And now we have four pawns and a queen for two rooks and a bishop. Not a material imbalance you see every day. And it just feels like it's going to peter off into a repetition. Zod is Josh Alexander. So, how many more pawns can Chuck get? We might be done now. The position looks somewhat even here. Zod's record is 2 wins and 1 loss. He's actually off on a pretty good start here. He lost to the tournament favorite. That's always never fun to lose. But he also has 2 other wins, including beating a national master earlier this morning. So he has a solid tournament going on, and losing to a 2400 isn't going to hurt his rating too much. Has a big game tomorrow morning against David Lubscomb. They're about even in rating. In fact, this matchup is the matchup between the 2 players that the General has not played this tournament. He hasn't played either Chuck or David. And they are in an absolute wild game. And this has been one of the crazier games of the tournament, for sure. Twists and turns every which way. And it feels inevitable that it might just end up in a repetition somewhere. I don't really see this game ending in anything other than a repetition. I mean, I guess there could be a blunder somewhere, but it feels like if things get bad for the rooks, they can unite and then check the white king forever. And I feel like the queen just has free reign over the board right now. and can force a repetition whenever she wants. So Chuck is trying to prove a queen is worth more than 2 rooks and a bishop, but also has 4 pawns. Crazy material imbalance. By the way, if you go by the point system, a queen has 9 points, a pawn is 1 point each. So that is 13 points of material. 2 rooks, 5 points each, or 10 points, and a bishop is 3. So that's 13. According to the point system, it's even. But not a very traditional material imbalance. Who are these guys? Exactly. These are 6 of the top players in Oklahoma. One of them being General Zod, who unfortunately lost his round 3 game and falls to 2 wins and 1 loss. And these are people who are playing. Zod has 2 wins and 1 loss. Still. But if you keep asking, it might change. Because at some point tomorrow it will change. So, but we will be back online for those games starting at 9:30 tomorrow. Still got a little bit of business to clean up in these 2 games, which appear to be going the distance. Another crazy game for David Lipscomb here. All right, Arya is doubling up and going to win that B pawn. However, the engine says rook g7, and it is an advantage for black. I haven't had too many advantages for black this game, but basically we're winning the g3 pawn. That puts pressure on the bishop, and if we're able to sneak in here, infiltrating with this rook, that could open things up. Josh Alexander is Zod, correct. That is indeed correct. Wow, Tom Bromlich does not find the right move. He needed to find rook to g7 to have an advantage. A rook to d7 does not have an advantage. Interestingly, the engine wants to go back to f4. But also rook b5 is fine as well. I think rook b5 will be what will be played in this game. Is there some sort of cash prize? How do they identify Zod as one of the best? So there is a cash prize sponsored with the tournament. I don't remember what it is, but there is a prize. And this is an invitational only tournament, so no entry fee. 5 rated games against some of the best players in Oklahoma. And this was an invite-only tournament where the invites were sent based upon active players' ratings in Oklahoma. So, General Zod had one of the top 6 ratings in Oklahoma for people who accepted the invitation to play in this tournament. And that's why he's here. So did all the other players who are playing in this event. I don't know the prize structure. I don't know if there's anything for second and third. I don't know if this is a winner takes all thing. I know there is a trophy with names of all the past winners on it. I know that's a thing. And I believe they had that on display at the state championship last year. It might do it again here. Yeah, interesting. After rook takes b5, I think the whole idea behind rook d7 was so that he could meet rook b5 with knight c4. And then after the king moves, you can push the pawn forward. But the king can just move back a square. So the king can just move back one. And then the engine says that this is best play, which I don't think will happen. But might be forced. All right, we have some moves played in this game. We last saw queen e4 played. King g7 has been played since. King to g2. Rook to g6. Queen to e2 here. And bishop to c1. It's just hard for anyone to really make a lot of progress. I think h4 is very natural. Because if you can get h4 and h5 in, we're moving those pawns. That being said, putting it on the same color square as the dark square bishop is a little bit awkward as well. All right, well, we now have 5 pawns for 2 rooks and a bishop. The ratings host is 1912, according to one person in chat. Gavin just thinks that white has chances to win this game. That is... I mean, they've got 5 pawns extra. You do not see material imbalances like this very often in chess. I feel like that one side is going to end this game bailing out with a perpetual. And it might be black bailing out, begging for the draw. It could be white begging out, begging for the draw. But yeah, this is a completely crazy material imbalance. All right, here. So as I expected when Tom played rook to d7, I thought that he would play knight c4, and you really pretty much have to play king d1. If you don't play king d1, any other move loses, I believe. Can you get away with king e1? Check. Here and here. Interesting. Am I better than Zod or about even? Zod has me by a couple hundred rating points. He would be favored if we were to play a game. So, I was not invited to this tournament, which tells you where I stand in the lore of Oklahoma chess at the moment. Not one of the top six players. That's why I am on the broadcast. You're stuck with me instead of one of the higher rated players. That being said, if you wanted to see high level commentary, you could have watched the candidates and be listening to like Piers Fiddler and stuff like that. I need to go back to live move. Okay, king d1 is on the board. So I looked at king e1 briefly. Right now, they want to repeat the position is from the engine's perspective. I don't think Tom's going to do that, though. I think that rook e7 is an idea. We'll see what the engine says. The engine's like, no, it's not an idea. Oh, that's sick. If you take their check and that peels off the rook. Ooh, that is a tactic. That is a tactic. I mean, we still almost are doing a thing here. But now we get this pin. And all right. That would be problematic. So, Tom still has to worry about some things here. Thank you, Joe Cool USA. we're trying our best with the resources that we have. Knight e3 scares me. The reason why knight e3 scares me is king to d2 is the only move, and then knight to c4 is a very natural move, and then king to d1 is a very natural move, and then knight to e3 is a very natural move. And we might be heading to a threefold repetition here. I'll stay here for a little bit just to see, just to make sure they don't do anything else here. But I feel like this game might be petering off into a draw. King d1 is the only move. So this repetition is forced if Tom wants it. And Tom might be thinking about hanging it up for the day, collecting a half a point, and moving on to the next day. I'm going to go ahead and switch games. I think that's going to end in a draw. Meanwhile, we have this absolutely crazy game going on here with, I mean, you're down 5 pawns and the engine says minus 1.3. Though you do have 2 rooks and a bishop for a queen. It's absurd. King g8 to break the pin. Queen e2. The idea here is Chuck would be completely happy if you wanted to get into this piece down ending because, well, I thought that this would be winning. Apparently this is drawn. Okay. But a simplification here. We see David moving his bishop this way. I think he wants to play bishop h4, followed by rook f2. Seems pretty logical. And we see a slight pull here for black. King g3 looks like the best computer move, according to the engine, which prevents bishop to h4. This is, even if black is better here, I mean, talk about a very difficult position to prove. Yeah. I gotta prove that 2 rooks and a bishop are better than a queen and 5 pawns. Here's 5 extra pawns. That is absolutely crazy. So queen e1 prevents the idea of bishop h4 that we were talking about previously. And yeah, how do you make progress if you're black here? The engine says minus 2.5. That is the least reliable minus 2.5 I've ever seen on an engine. Yeah, I don't believe that. And there it goes. It has gone away as expected. But, I mean, white can simply check. I think both players are playing for a win here. But it's just really hard to find one. I like queen e8. Because on queen e8, it makes king h7 be the only move, I believe. Because this, we've got queen e5. I guess we got king g6, but I don't know. I thought we were dropping a piece there for a second. But apparently not. Queen e8, queen e6 are both ideas for black here. David, by the way, for those of you who didn't watch the previous round number 2, David Lubscomb was in a 4-hour an over 4-hour game where he converted a queen and up 1 pawn position against Arya and this one. I think that they repeated. So I think this game is a draw, right? Before here. So this is the position the first time. Position the second time. So after King C1 on the board just loses. Wow. I thought this game was ending in a repetition. But King C1 on the board. And here is the difference. We can play this now. And now if you do this tactic, which we were worried about, do the C6 check and win here, this is checkmate. So you can't do the entire line, while if the king was on D1, it wouldn't be checkmate. So that was the whole thing in this position that I was trying to get rook to E7 to work. But now rook E7 works. Now the question is will Tom notice this slight difference in the position? But Arya, frustrated by the repetition, wants to play for a win, plays. But Tom plays knight to E3, missing the win. King D2 is all zeros, is a repetition, by the way. Arya, of course, has already proven that he wants anything but a repetition and is playing to fight. And we have a game on here. Somehow. Neither one of these players are interested in drawing. Both players had the opportunity. I guess Tom was interested in drawing. Yeah, Arya's really not interested in drawing. He lost a tough 4-hour game, and he says, I want to win a game. But the engine says rook d6 for equality. And yeah, there's really no other move but rook d6 here. Tom is threatening d2 and d1 queen, which you do not want to allow. So rook d6 is really the only move. King d2 looks decent as well. But knight c4, and then if you try this, we can get away with this now? No, I've lost the game. There is hope for Arya yet. I have found a way to lose. Very complex position, though. Wow. I thought that this game was going to end in a repetition, but it has not. And some crazy things I think have happened here. Okay, we saw the bishop go to g5, queen to e1, rook to f4. The pawn is coming up the board, but rook e7 is allowed. David finds it. Queen to b1. There's not many squares that this queen could have gone to that it didn't lose itself. I think queen to d1, I think, felt a little bit more logical. But now after rook to e2, this is starting to get difficult here. The problem with king to g3 is we are getting very close to checkmate. Oh no, I lost the game. Wow. Because this hangs the bishop. And yeah. So you have to be careful here if you're David. The engine, again, this number is just going to move a ridiculous amount because these moves are hard. Wants to play rook to e3 forces the king back. Then it wants rook to e2. But what happens if you go here? Okay. Always repeat, I guess. So this does threaten checkmate, though. Rook f e4 ends it quickly. Yeah. So if the king comes up, rook f to e4. And if the king comes down, like rook f to e4, feels logical. Threatening here. So maybe we got queen d3 here. This allows bishop h4 if we want. King g7 would just be, in this position, crazy. Just to think of it, I mean. Just to think of king g7. But yeah, I mean, I like this just to check, right? If you go king f2, we've got bishop h4. Now, are we getting anywhere here? Rook e3 just wins, yeah. So they can't allow that. So if here we have this check, but now it's less clear. Yeah, so king f2 would be the main move there. So this is the live position. Check play. King f2 is the only move that doesn't instantly lose. We've learned that. Any other move loses to rook 4 to e2, followed by rook e3. But it's also hard to just allow this bishop check for free. So I understand that. All right, here. So after king d5, rook d6 was found. The interesting thing here is the engine wants to take, and then it just wants to play king d4, ignoring this pawn, which feels hard to do. I guess it's actually kind of forced, though. But this game's showing a draw. So, in this position, after rook d6, they agreed to a draw. It's very interesting they agree to a draw here because, I mean, they were repeating moves and then Arya declined. And here, there's a lot after takes. You can't take here because of this. So you have to come forward. But to me, there's a lot of interesting play here. Maybe it's less interesting than I think, because maybe it's just repetition here. I don't know. But I think a draw is a fair result, because they were repeating. Tom did miss a shot, a complete shot, which would have been interesting if he found it. But yeah, I'll do a quick rundown of this game while we let David Bluscombe and Chuck go ahead here. For those of you who just now tuned in, Looks like we had a classic Queen's Gambit that we saw a lot of in the candidates. If you were watching that coverage, it felt like every game started with c4, d4, or knight f3, and then it just transposed into stuff here. But Arya got a great position out of the opening. It had been something that he'd been struggling with in rounds 1 and round 2. But ultimately, just kind of fizzled out and didn't go anywhere. And around here, it just feels about equal, locked up position. It's going to be hard to prove anything. Yeah. F4. I mean, B4 allowing the knight to come to C4 just did not feel very good. I don't like committing to B4 there. But I get it, you're trying to get your pawns up the board, but once the knight comes to C4, you can't really remove it from there. And it's just hard for either side to make a lot of progress. Though, credit to both players, they both tried here. And in this position, a nice plus for white. But it's very hard to understand how and why. I mean, Arya played the most natural moves, but none of them did anything. And then he makes one h5. He needed to play rook a3 there, which was non-intuitive. After c5, it felt like this game was just going to peter out into equality. But hey, the d-pawn gets pushed up the board here. And we had a little bit of chaos happen. Black has an advantage if they play rook g7 with the idea of coming in here, infiltrating over here. But black elected to get behind this pawn with the idea of meeting the rook b5 with this knight c4. We thought this would be a repetition and end the game. But Arya said, I don't want to draw. And that allowed the opportunity for the rook e7 shot, which would have been crazy tactically. Because we had seen from the previous position of this, and check. But the problem is winning the rook isn't enough because this is checkmate. Of course, Arya did not fall for that. Check here. And they agree to a draw in this position. And wow, we have a decisive result in the Lovescombe game when I was going over that. Yeah. So I said previously that he had to play king f2 to keep this game going. He did not. Check, wins the queen, and we see the resignation here. This is a rook and a bishop for too many pieces. Only 5 pawns, but the rook and the bishop would be able to gobble all of these up. They're just not close enough to queening. So quickly go over this game. Absolutely insane game here. Credit to both players for really fighting hard. But yeah, this was a position that apparently Chuck loves to play these type of openings. It felt a little bit odd to me, but Chuck eventually breaks out of here, gets back to equality, and then the game just went into complete chaos. Do any of my friends smoke tree? No, I don't. But just a completely chaotic game at later points here. Go ahead, just quickly go through. So here, after this moment here, I thought f5. I thought the game was over. I thought that Chuck would nearly be resigning, but after bishop g3, it was a resource I had missed. And there's just so much life in this position and so much chaos. But he just gave up the rook, which I didn't understand at the time, but he had so much more pressure than I thought. And this game ended up being quite the dogfight. Giving up the queen, the only move to maintain equality, by the way. but maintaining equality was all he needed. This queen h7 check and an accuracy which sent Chuck into an ending which was worse briefly. However, this is equal, but the zeros are very deceiving because the position is just absolute chaos. And, I mean, Chuck gets another pawn, so he's got 5 pawns and a queen for 2 rooks and a bishop, something you just don't see. But unfortunately for Chuck, some inaccuracies near the end of the game, this bishop getting onto a better square and just unable to figure out where that queen should be. A great move here, rook to e7, getting that rook in a better position here. Rook to e4. Queen d3 was the correct move, but unfortunately, after king g2, the game was just simply done. And David advances to 2 points out of 3. So heading into tomorrow, David and Josh will play each other in round number 4. That will be a key matchup to determine probably second place in the event. Ryan will be looking to continue his dominance against Tom in round 4 as well. And Chuck and Arya both will be looking for their first win in round number 4. Thank you to everyone who tuned in and listened for me for, geez, if you watched both broadcasts, you saw about 8 hours of chess and 8 hours of me talking. And I am tired. But I will be back at 9:30 a.m. tomorrow, same channel, same place, and hopefully the general can get a big win against David Ludscombe. Thank you to everyone who tuned in. Bye, everybody.